You cannot be serious!
Well, now this is part 2 of the podcast, Sam, Mike and Don. It's episode 30, what is it? 9, is it? 39. And we've had some great guests on, and we've wanted to have this man. Now, I'm just declaring a full disclosure here. I've been critical of this man where I'm about to introduce, because he said he'd come on a few times, and mind you, he doesn't have to come on at all, but and I've just given him a bit of a clip previous, saying, well, gee whiz. But he's in here now, and there is a certain subject that we're going to canvass. There's no doubt of this. There's no doubt of this, but we're not going to do it now. We're going to leave it till the end, and we're going to ask him.
Catch him by surprise, are we?
We're going to ask him. He's here listening to this.
Well, his body language is not good, Johnny. We're all open, but he's got his arms folded. So that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to open himself to us.
Well, he mightn't want to open himself to you, Donald. So before we get into what we would like to discuss with him more than anything, I would want to introduce a man who is Premier of this state of Victoria. He is the president of the Hawthorn Football Club. He is he's a bit, in my opinion, Trump-esque, because he knows that whatever he says will be brought up by the media, and it doesn't worry him. He's a forthright man, and we're very happy to have him here, and his name is the Right Honourable, not sure Right Honourable, the Honourable Jeff Kennet AC. So thank you for coming in.
Great pleasure, great pleasure.
Now, our first question...
Well, hang on, he just said great pleasure. I don't think he was very sincere. He wanted us to hurry up.
Are you trying to provoke him, eh?
Well,
Don,
I can't get him to get his unfold his arms.
Don,
Jeffrey,
no,
you're
I'm
not.
relaxed.
Just open your body.
Don, could we be respectful
sake.
to the
Who
guests?
swore then?
Could we be...
I just said, for goodness sake.
I thought you said fuck.
No,
Don.
Don,
I just said I'm very relaxed. I'm just sitting back
Speaking
here
in
in
the
this
microphone.
I like
comfortable
your
chair.
glasses, Jeffrey.
Well, you like my jumper? You
Yeah,
like my glasses?
No, I didn't like your
Glasses
jumper.
are good.
The glasses are very
They're from
nice.
Milan.
They're what?
Milan.
I can't afford to get a...
I understand that.
Milan, Don, where people are dying by the minute over
Yes,
there.
there's...
I went
Don.
to Milan. I thought it was
Don.
a very boring place.
Don, you just settle down, mate. You're twitchy. Just settle down and be respectful. Because I'm sure there's some things you'd like to discuss with Jeff, and I would like to discuss them too on your behalf. But before we start, what I want to know is, did you get more enjoyment out of being, this will sound a Dorothy Dixer, did you get more enjoyment, or did you think it was more important to be president, to be the state premier or the president of Hawthorn?
Samuel, they're very, very different roles.
Of course.
The more important one for more people is obviously the political role. The more emotional one is the football one for a smaller audience. So I always say with politics, I might have been running a business with my colleagues that might have been 20, 30, 40 billion dollars in terms of financial, but the emotion attached to that with the public was very small, unless, of course, you're jackhammering their nature strip at 4 o'clock in the morning. On the other hand, football is small in terms of its revenue, and when I was first president there, it was probably only turning over about 20 or 30 million. You had 25,000 members, but the emotion was substantially higher than the size of the competition. So football to most people is more important because it's the thing that gets them away from the angst and the stress that's associated either with home or where they work.
So you couldn't get it out of your blood because you've had 2 goes at being the president. You've done
Well, I could have gotten out, but I was asked to come back because there'd been a bit of a foul-up between my first presidency and my second. And when they approached me, and they were very good about it, they said, we'd made a mistake. Would you come back and try and right the ship? And I said, after a lot of thought, and given that I'd promised my wife I'd never go back into football, I did.
So did they have to rejig the constitution to allow you to come back?
No, you might remember, Don, when I became president, there was nothing in the constitution that stopped a person staying forever.
That's right.
And a bit like Eddie Maguire, now done over 20 years. I thought that was wrong. My idea of leadership is you go in there from 6 to 9 years, You achieve what you want to do and get out, or you don't achieve what you want to do and you should give it to someone else. So I changed the constitution with the board at the day to restrict the president to 2 terms. So a board member can stay for 3 terms.
One term being 3 years?
Yes. So a board member can stay for 3 years and a board member can stay for 3 terms. So that is technically 9, but if they came in halfway through a term, they could do the 3 terms plus the 1 or 2 of the unexpired person before them. For a person who comes in as president, if they came in, for instance, I came in onto the board briefly and then president, but if a person was on the board, like, for instance, Andrew Newbold, he was on the board for a couple of terms, he succeeded me, and then he was able to do another 2 terms as president. So now there is nothing in the Constitution, because no one ever thought that anyone would be silly enough to want to go back. So the Constitution was actually silent on whether, having been a president and then left, which I did for about 6 years, you could go back.
Now, loyal as you are,
Yes.
you did offer to be president of Melbourne, didn't you?
Yes, I did, when they were in diabolical trouble after I'd finished my term as presidency, because I'm an agent of change. I like a challenge. And I didn't like the fact that Melbourne, which was my parents' club, so my parents didn't support Hawthorn, my parents supported Melbourne. They were in such diabolical trouble, and Melbourne carries the name of the capital city of the state. And I offered to go back there.
A long bow, Jeff.
Pardon?
It's a long bow.
No, it's not. Not if you understand, having been where I've been in politics.
Yes,
So
all right, I'll take that back.
I was, running the state with my colleagues.
You wouldn't have offered to lead the Labor Party, though.
No, I would not.
And emotion
called the
is the
Australian
same in
Labor.
Melbourne in supporting your football club. You supported through thick and thin.
Yes, but Don, I love a challenge. I mean,
But
think
it's nearly sacrilege to
No, I understand what you mean, but I don't think it is sacrilege, because I like a challenge. And I said to one of our political leaders at the moment, they will probably look back at this time with this coronavirus as the most exciting time of their political career, because there's so much happening. There's so many things they've got to respond to. It's very tough. It's very tiring. They'll make some mistakes, but this is more exciting than just running the country or just running the state or running a football club. And it was the same way with Melbourne. I like to take something that's broken and I like to try and rebuild it.
So you're a bit like Hillary Clinton in the...
I am nothing like Hillary Clinton.
To the extent that you lost
No, don't give
the
me that.
unlosable election.
Yeah.
Now I'm asking you now, if you were the Premier of this state now, what would you be doing about the coronavirus? What would you be suggesting to the people, your flock?
I would not put myself in that position right now, because I think that is wrong.
I see.
Daniel Andrews has been duly elected. ScoMo's been elected federally. They are our leaders. They need our support, and they don't need people attacking them or criticising or being constructively critical just for the point of doing
Really?
it. Yep,
Could they be
absolutely.
Could they be
That's
compared to the New Zealand Prime Minister?
Oh, yes, in the sense that they're both in leadership, all of them, a leadership
Who do you think's
position.
doing a better job, New Zealand or Australia and Victoria?
Don, I think all of them have done a very good job under very trying circumstances, because they're learning. No one's been through this in our lifetime. And so they're learning all the time. And there was a lot of, hindsight's the easiest thing in the world, to look back and say, well, when we first heard about this in China, we should have locked our borders, we should have locked the country down. If you have a look at it now, the number of incidents is dropping. We are containing the virus. That's all we're doing. We're containing it. And I think, to their credit, those who are leading us have tried to keep the economy going as best possible, right, which is absolutely necessary, because the economy is going to pay a bigger price over time than the virus is going to cause in the short term. So New Zealand, they're doing it their way and they're doing it well. I think we're doing it very well here in Australia.
Jeffrey, can we cut to the elephant in the room?
No.
Yes. Yeah. I'm happy to. Yeah,
Why
yeah,
not?
Well, I was going to
Well,
get
I'd
all
like to ask more about football.
Well, we'll get the rest of it out because that's really why we
No,
want him.
I'm happy to do it all.
If I had a
Sam.
good story at the Herald Sun, you know where I put it? On the front.
Go ahead.
I make people read it early.
Go ahead.
Where does it stand? The offer of legend status to Don Scott, and his refusal to accept it under your terms. Where do we sit with that?
Well, it sits where we're sitting on our backsides at the moment. It's dead in the water. Whether
It's
it gets
dead, is it?
Well, it is at the moment. It was offered, it was refused, and that's the end of it. And whether that changes in the future, that will depend on Don. It'll depend on the club. It's dead in the water as we sit here this morning.
Can you articulate what the Hawthorn offer was?
Oh God! It was the offer, the greatest honour we as a club can give to an individual who, in our opinion, had served the club remarkably well.
Okay, what was the sticking point?
Rejection.
Yeah, on what grounds?
Well, as I understand the public comments, Don said, one, he doesn't appreciate those sorts of recognition. Secondly, he lived for his teammates, and that's all. They're the ones he loves. So it was rejected. So offer made, offer rejected, end of story.
But the public understanding is that you offered to award him legend status
At a
certain forum.
Oh, sorry, righto, sorry. No, what we try and do with this, whether it's Don Scott or Jeff Kennett, we are just bits of flotsam in the history of the Hawthorn Football Club, right? We come, we do our best, we move on. The club is bigger than Don or I, this is one of the great criticisms I have of the AFL, and we'll come to that later on, no doubt. The club is owned by the membership, and it is to the membership that we owe our responsibilities and loyalty. And therefore, what we were trying to do is make sure that we awarded this accolade to a person we thought worthy of it at the place where we consider is the most important of all, which is the annual general meeting. That's when everyone has the opportunity to come at no cost. Now, not many do, of course. Sometimes there might be 500. In 96 at the potential merger, there were a lot more. But there's no cost. It's a members' night. It's a shareholders' night. It's open to, but it could never be, the 80,000 members that we have.
Is the offer still on the table?
No, you've asked me that question.
No.
The offer was made. The offer was rejected.
So Jeff, you said there was a huge turnout for the 96.
Yeah, but that wasn't the AGM, I don't think, Don, was it?
No, but I'm just saying, and the reason that you are still the president of Hawthorn is probably the reason that this man here, Don Scott, decided he wouldn't accept it and ripped the jumper off. Now, Don...
Sorry, I missed that. What's the point there? I missed that.
There was a big turnout because Don saved the club, and I presume that's one of the reasons why Hawthorn thought we would like to make him a legend status along with his playing career. But could I say this to you, Jeff? Mick and I have been your greatest ally. We think it is ridiculous that man there would not accept your kind offer on behalf of Hawthorn. And if something comes of this today, you say it's dead in the water, we would like to think that we have united the two of you and in some common ground you could get on with what you originally tried to do and have the function.
Right. Well, let me just say, Mick asked me the question, where does it stand? Offer made, offer rejected. Right now, we have a lot more important things we're trying to do at the club to survive. Whether this issue comes up again in the future, time will tell. But right now, I have, as do 17 other presidents and collectively, we've got a challenge to the whole competition. It's bigger than any one of us, right? We've got to work together at the top level in order that our members can get satisfaction. So, answer, offer made, offer rejected.
Move on.
Will it come up in the future? It may. I don't know. But it won't come up today.
Okay, we're moving on. Shut up. We're moving on.
Don't say shut up.
Well, you blokes, I put my hand up. I wanted to come in with a question. You blokes come over the top all the time. Now, I am going to ask a question.
See why it just never got off the ground.
Yeah.
Jeff, you said that the club is owned by the memberships.
Yep.
That's incorrect. the club is owned by the AFL. They own the colours and they own the symbol. They can take that away from that group of people and go and start Hawthorn wherever they like.
Theoretically.
Sorry,
John,
but with due respect, Hawthorn existed a long time before the AFL.
Mayblooms.
They actually existed with its predecessor, the VFL, and before the VFL they existed as a small group that came out of that pub in Hawthorn. So right from the genesis of Hawthorn, there were a group of people who wanted to put together a team. Yes, it's changed with the passage of time, but right now, Don, one of the wonderful things that you, Ian, initially, although it faded away a bit after that, what you did was secure the heritage of the club, and even now, with the changes that have been made in the competition, the club that you're a part of is as independent of the AFL as only about 5 others.
I understand all that financially insecure, but it's still come back to my point, is that the AFL owns Hawthorn as it does every other every other league club.
No, I'm sorry. We are part of an organisation. We have a franchise. We have a licence. The AFL Commission was established by the President's last century, at the end of last century, to administer the code. And we have a licence. But we could walk away from that licence if we wanted to. On the other hand, the AFL could suspend us.
That's right. You could walk away from the licence, but but Hawthorn could still keep going.
Yes, separate from the AFL. We could.
Is this important?
Yeah, but
no, because the AFL clubs sold their soul in the 1980s.
Don, we're not talking about that.
No, we're not.
That's not the issue.
Could I ask you, Don, what did you think about what Jeff Kennet just said about you not accepting his offer on behalf of Hawthorn? Why didn't you accept it, and what problem...
what are you doing? You're going back over time.
I'm going back over why you didn't accept it.
I thought we'd finished that.
We'd finished that.
We haven't
Yes,
started
we have.
that.
Jeff articulated the club view, and very convincingly. What is your truculence based on?
Well, I wanted it at a particular... I didn't necessarily want the honour because it's very subjective. And I don't agree with a lot of this stuff because I believe teams should be honoured. We are individualising a sport which is a team sport. And as the older I get, the more I become against individual awards within a group situation. Will you show? Can I finish? And I was not convinced, but I was talked into accepting this and whatever else. And part of it was, we'll do it in front of your friends or the people that you are familiar with. And it was going to be done I said okay to that because it was going to be done at the Life Members Dinner. And so I agreed to that. When it was then put to me to go to the annual meeting, no, that wasn't part of the thing because I feel embarrassed about it and I do not want to get up in front of people I don't know and to receive the award.
Anyway, look, can I just say...
So that's
I think we've covered it, with due respect, in a nice way.
Very nice.
All I'm saying is, if it hadn't been for Don, we wouldn't be here.
We're all agreed on that.
So we're indebted to him.
Yeah.
What happens in the future will be there for the future. Right now, we've got to manage our way through the current crisis that we're facing.
It would be nice if it happened during your tutelage.
Well, my tutelage is about to run out.
That's right.
Because
That's
I'm
why it'd be
about
nice.
Well, it won't happen because right now, between now and November,
All right.
we have got so much on our plate. Absolutely.
So you said earlier that you didn't want to get involved in Daniel Andrews or Scott Morrison. Just leave it to them. But it hasn't worried you about giving your opinion about the NRL starting up?
No, I think that's absurd.
Yeah, no, I do too. But so why did the AFL, who I believe you're part of the AFL, why did they start their campaign at all this year?
Oh, well, because I think at the time they were able to do it. And then, of course, the medical officers came in and said no, and the government's actually prohibited it. So we can only play if, in fact, the medical officers give advice to the politicians that we should be able to play.
But they're never going to do that.
In New South Wales, it's different. Apparently, the medical officers have said you can play it. But just think of the contradiction. We're all sitting here at arm's length. What do they call it? Isolation.
Social distancing.
Social distancing. whether it's ARL or whether it's Australian rules football, that is the most intimate of sports.
Of course.
Because you are together, you're spitting unnecessarily, you're breathing heavily, etc., and you're running great risks. So there's a massive contradiction when the public's trying to obey the rules set down by their leaders,
Yes.
social distancing, if we're going to play sport. Now, my argument is the ARL are rushing into it. It is my hope...
NRL.
It is my hope that if we continue to contain the virus between now and the end of June, during June we should review the circumstances, and if the medicos, through the politicians, advise that, all right, we're going to start easing up some of these restrictions, I would rather see AFL come back and play their last 16 games before Christmas with the finals, which they can do in the way we normally play it, knowing that the people who are contesting it are young, they're virile, they're fit, etc. They're less likely to attract the illness than people of our age. But that's up to the medicos, and it's up to the politicians to make that decision.
So no crowds.
So, Jeff, why have you got to play it this year? Why can't you just wipe this year off and
could.
start the season again next year?
You could, Don, and that is an option. If we don't, as I say, at the moment we're containing the virus and we're doing it very well. But if you take your foot off the accelerator, in Singapore, Japan, even China now, they're coming in for a second spike because they've lifted the restrictions. And if we end up with a second spike before we get a vaccine to be able to prevent it, then we could be eliminating the sport for a long, long time. So you're right. If we find in June that we've got a second spike, the authorities might say, right, no sport, full stop.
Okay, Jeff, can I ask you this? You're in the AFL's war cabinet on this.
Yeah.
Do you know why that we are part of the most successful football code in the country, why the AFL needs to go to banks to have a line of credit for $600 million?
Yes, and it is a line of credit. How much they have to draw down of that over the next 2 years' time will tell. Why are they doing it? Because over that period of time, the commission on behalf of the clubs, because the commission is there as a result of the clubs transferring their authority to the AFL commission to run it, they have used some of their surpluses to buy the stadium, which they've used as collateral. I think we own about 200 million of the stadium. It's probably worth closer to $1 billion now, so it's been a good investment, and they're using that as collateral. Why are they using it as collateral? Going back to Don's point a few minutes ago, there's only 5 or 6 clubs that are financially independent enough to manage their own administrative costs between now and next year. All clubs are going to get a reduced payment to pay the players. So the players have taken a 50% cut in pay at the moment, and if we don't play for the rest of the year, they take another 20%, so they're only getting 30% of their total payment. All clubs, whether they're a assisted or a non-assisted club like Hawthorn, Collingwood, Richmond, West Coast, we're all going to get the same amount of money for our players. The vast majority of the clubs do not have the cash, the income, the reserves to pay their administration. And therefore the AFL is borrowing money against the asset in order to support those clubs that haven't got the cash to pay for their administration. That means their soft cap and, of course, their fundamental administration. The clubs that get that money will get that interest-free until October, the end of the traditional football season, but after that they've got to pay interest on it.
Would it be fair to say that the AFL only played round 1 in order to receive the first part payment of a 4-payment deal by the televised network, the televising networks? It was just a fiscal decision to start the season at all.
It is a view that has been expressed, and therefore it's understandable to make it. But I think you've also got to understand that there was a high expectation among the players to get a game in and hopefully get a few more. I think there was a high expectation among the community for the season to start.
Yes.
So while your view has got merit, I'm not, and I don't know, and I honestly don't know, whether that was the sole factor.
You don't honestly know that.
No, I don't, because I wasn't consulted.
You're part of 7 then, though, weren't you?
No, I retired from the board of 7 last year.
But the clubs would have voted on whether they wanted to participate, and I should imagine there would be medicos on the various club boards who would have put up their hand knowing the situation and said, no, this is a very dangerous thing, yet they were overruled by the club boards to participate.
Don, again, our club was not asked whether we wanted to play or not. I think the players were through the AFLPA, but the club boards were not asked. We were not asked to vote on whether we wanted it or not. The AFL, the reason the president years ago conceded administrative control to the AFL Commission was to get a better orderly management of the code itself.
No, I correct you there because they sold their colours and emblem to the AFL to get them out of the trouble that they were in financially.
Yeah, well,
and so all the clubs covered their debt by selling off those things.
That is a view, I accept that, but the more... If you have a look at soccer in Australia, which was a federation, it's a disaster. It has never worked. And same with the other codes. They have never got the same sort of control we've
I've got
seen.
no argument about that.
Right.
Hang on.
But it was, because football was parochial, run by parochial administrators, but now with the commission, it's
a lot more professional.
Yes.
But it's not to say...
objective, I should say.
Yeah, we're being tested at the moment. However good we were, we used to talk about the Age having rivers of gold in their advertisements that came in, and the rivers of gold disappeared. Well, the rivers of gold have disappeared for sport in Australia. This coronavirus has stopped people attending games. So we get our income from media rights and for gate receipts in the main and our membership. So media rights and payments now have been reduced. There's no gate receipts. And membership, while members are being very, very loyal and staying with us in the main, if this continues, you can understand if they have other priorities. So we're being now severely, severely tested. And while I've got a lot of criticisms of the AFL, and I still do, we are the best sporting code in the country. And that is partly because of the Commission, which to date, as you know, is answerable to no one. They should be answerable to the 18 shareholders who are the clubs that set them up. But they're not. And what's happening over this coronavirus, for the first time in my administrative terms at Hawthorn, for the first time, the AFL is speaking to the clubs a lot more openly, trying to collectively ensure that all clubs survive.
Jeffrey, I want to change tack a bit. You and Clarko are both headstrong individuals.
Yep.
You once said that Clarko should have a limit on his tenure at Hawthorn, which he's
15 years
exceeded.
you've been there.
Now, everyone can change their view. I'm not holding you to that. But how do you and Clarkson go in your...
Good.
Yeah?
Good. Yeah.
Even though you're both very, very strong-willed.
Yeah, but that's often good because where you've got strong-willed people, you need other strong-willed people to be able to challenge the other. And it works both ways. And you're right, I always say, we talked about it earlier, the best term of a leader, in my opinion, is between 6 and 9 years. And I always said to Clarko, for God's sake, don't stay here any longer than 10. But there's always an exception to every rule you put into place. And he is, without a doubt, the best educated coach in the league. Why is he educated? Because every year he goes off overseas. He goes to other codes. He goes to other sporting facilities. He refreshes. He observes what's happening around the world. It's why he can come back and start again almost from scratch. There's no one else like him in the league in terms of that education.
So would you say in the 15 years he's been coach and all these trips overseas, has that translated, in your opinion, to being successful?
Absolutely. What have we done? Won 4 premierships since 2008. There's no other club that's done that.
One while you were the president.
Yes, well, I set up the lot, of course.
you did.
But one, no, that's right. But more importantly, it's not always just about the premiership. It's about how you work, in his case, with his players and his coaches. Is he leading them to a better place, particularly for when they leave football? Because sadly, so many people, when they come to a sport at a very young age and the crowd stops clapping, they've got nowhere to go. And they're lonely and they're broken, and they become more broken with the passage of time.
Now, you just mentioned Clarkson, but you said in your open letter to the members that he is on annual leave. Does that mean that he is getting full play, taking into account a leak from the coaches' meeting was that he was not going to take a pay cut, whereas the other league coaches were?
Don, I will sit corrected, right, because I'm not actually sure. My understanding is he has taken a substantial pay cut, in line with our other senior people, which is 30%, which is more than most of the other people who have taken 20%. But he has so much accumulated leave. If ever there was a time for everyone to use up their leave, whether it's in commerce or football makes no difference, but he would be taking that leave at the reduced salary by 30%.
But in your...
But I will check that. I'm not 100% sure, but that is my understanding.
Jeff, who or what cost Hawthorn Cyril Rioli?
A whole lot of factors in the end.
You didn't fall out with him?
No, not with Cyril. As you know, in the last year, I think he'd only played 4 games. He had a great longing to return north with his family, and that had been in play for a long time. And his body was very fragile. And it was, I think, him going back early, while it was his decision. He did go back early, but I don't know how his body would have been able to continue to maintain the pressure that's applied in AFL football at the time. It's interesting. I thought he'd go back up there and play games. He's done a bit on the Tiwi Islands, but in a more casual, not as professional way. But he was, I mean, that 2008 grand final where he used to be able to turn on sixpences with Mark Williams, not Mark Williams.
Mark Williams.
Mark Williams, the full forward.
Yeah, our little Mark Williams. And the other one was Stewie Dew, who, I mean, the three of them in that 5 minutes of play, it was just spectacular.
Hey, you said, Mick said, did you have a fallout with Cyril? You said not with Cyril. Who did you have a fallout with?
I always have fallouts with myself all the time. No, Cyril's, I've tried to contact him, as many people in the club have. He's a very
insular,
quiet individual doing his own thing. But he's a lovely man, and he was a beautiful footballer.
Now, you said you like challenges.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd like to take over from Gill's job?
No.
Would you like to run the competition?
No.
Why not?
Well, why not? Because I'm too young, too inexperienced. I need more time, more experience under my belt.
You'd be $2 million richer each year.
Don, you of all people should know, because you live by the same standard. Money isn't the thing by which we judge what we do.
But your role would be...
But I don't do it. I don't do anything for money.
But your role would be Goyder, not McLaughlin, chairman of the commission, wouldn't it? If you were to go to the AFL, it would be in that role, not as the administrative head.
You said you're not happy with it in certain aspects.
Look, it's easy to sit back and be a critic. The one thing I like is good governance. I think I hold...
Are we getting it?
We can always improve it. And it's frustrated me with the AFL that we, the shareholders, the clubs, don't hold the AFL to account as regularly as we should. And we should do so. And so the other day I wrote a letter to my colleagues, my presidential colleagues, and I asked them to join with me in trying to get the AFL to give us the same information that they're now asking for the clubs in this new environment in which we live. So we've got to report every month, particularly the assisted clubs, on their cash flow, on their revenue, on their expenditure, etc. I would like to see us hold the AFL to account. I want to know monthly what their expenditure is. I want to know what their revenue is. I want to know what their cash flow is. If we're going to borrow a lot of this 600 million facility that we have, not all of it, but whatever I'd like to know. I'd like to know how we're going to pay the interest on that over time. I'd like to know what our revenue is. It's just simple good governance. So that's the thing that drives me. So I'm chairman of Equity Trustees, which is a company that's been going in Australia, for 130 years. It's a trustee company. Governance is the thing that drives us all the time. We've gone through wars, we've been through depressions, we'll get through this. Why? Because the governance is good.
Jeff, you said it's going to cost $11 million to keep Hawthorn going. For how long do you envisage, or how long is it going to take to spend this $11 million? And what are you spending that $11 million on at Hawthorn?
Don, we've probably got at the moment cash of about 14 million. We have some land that we own, as you know, for Dingley.
Dingley. Do you own that outright?
Yes. We've got some commercial operations, so out at Waverley.
Which are the shops at Waverley?
Yes, we have some shops there, particularly the gym, which gives us very good revenue when it's open, but now it's closed, so no revenue. And we have the other two facilities, which are both convention, hotel, gaming, right? Caroline Springs and Waverley. And we have some money.
Are they owned in conjunction with Matheson?
No.
So they're owned outright by Hawthorn now?
The businesses at Vegas is owned by Hawthorn, the business, not the land.
Yes.
And at Caroline Springs, it's the buildings, the hotel, the convention centre is owned by someone else, but we own the business. So they own the land and the building.
Is Hawthorn running the business, or are you running that in conjunction with somebody?
Yeah, we're running it with the Gauchis, who are two people who have experience in this area, the two brothers. So, and then we have some money in the foundation, which we can't touch.
You can't touch.
Right. So what are we spending our money on? We're spending our money on our soft cap. Right, so that's the coaches, which has been reduced substantially, and the doctors and all of those people who support the players, and we're spending our money on the administration. And we've cut the administration and the soft cap, the coaches and everyone, from about 128 down to 33 people. So we've stood down all the rest, right? Like most other organisations are doing. So that's a massive. So what are we spending the money on? We're spending that money over the next year on keeping those two parts going.
Jeffrey, can you put your Beyond Blue hat back on?
Yes.
Two parts. Is Hawthorn still getting revenue from poker machines?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, sorry, when they operate, they're not operating at the moment.
And the second part is, how did you feel when the AFL renewed a contract with a betting agency for $8 million?
Well, again, just a contradiction. It's interesting. The AFL, while they started off attacking clubs with gaming machines, stopped that attack, and now it's dried up entirely because they've gone and signed an even more lucrative deal with one of the betting agencies. And I don't want to dwell on a point. The difference between gaming machines, you can't advertise them. You can have an advertising sign on the outside of the building, but people have got to go there, right? And young people aren't allowed in. So it's adults who make a decision whether they go and game or not. Sports betting is everywhere. It's on the grounds, it's on television. Young children see it. Young children go to the football now and can get online and bet. We're indoctrinating a whole generation of young people that their future success and opportunity is going to come through gaming.
Why don't you agitate more about it
I
then?
did, mate, but it's like they're not interested.
They should be. They should be made to be interested.
I know, but, mate, I've tried to talk about a number of things with the AFL in terms of governance and everything else, but they're a law unto themselves. They are answerable. The only people they're answerable to should be the presidents of the clubs, but with more than half of those dependent on the AFL to survive,
So why
None of them
they're
not prepared to actually...
So why don't you go on the commission? Why don't you go for the job?
Because I'd rather be president of Hawthorn.
But you're
But you
not going
finished
to be.
this year.
Well, that's right. But let me just deal with one thing at a time.
And then we'll get on to Don again.
No.
And that,
But it's a contradiction that Hawthorn have got
Gaming machine.
gaming machines.
Yep.
I can't see the difference in your argument between gaming machines and gaming.
No, he drew the distinction.
No, a very small distinction.
I can easily. If you want to play a game, you can't advertise gaming machines. It's illegal.
I understand
To go
that.
to a gaming venue, you've got to go to it,
Yeah.
and you've got to be an adult to get in. With
Spurious.
sports betting, you go to a football ground, you go listen to a commentary. Everywhere it is, it's in the ether. You can sit there at the football, Don, a 9-year-old kid, as they're doing, and they see the odds up on the screen and they bet.
I agree. I
I
think that's
agree,
a point.
but
No,
I can't see where you draw the line, whether it's an adult or a child. Adult going to the pokies, a conscious effort, losing all their money.
Well,
It's addictive.
the majority-
It's addictive.
Well, sorry, so's driving a car if you use it badly, or so's alcohol, which is the biggest mind-changing drug
fast
in the
foods.
world.
Well, a football club
all
is a
I'm saying
community
is,
thing.
You know
and it
what?
should-
At a lot of those gaming facilities, you go and have a look and see who the majority of the people are. They're
Old,
people. they're-
overweight
No, hang on.
pensioners.
They are senior people. Many of them
That's
are
what I said.
isolated, who go there for companionship, or they go there for a meal. Right? Yes, there are people who lose money, and I'm sorry about that, but there are people who lose in a whole lot of different ingredients in life today.
Are a significant number of people you dealt with in your chairmanship of Beyond Blue people who are in trouble and committed suicide with gambling problems?
No, certainly not. Well,
Farmers.
You have a look at we go back to where we started today. At some stage, this coronavirus. What have we lost now? About 50 people have died.
62, I think.
62. 8 people every day take their lives by suicide. Our road toll is substantially higher. We're about to enter winter with the normal flus and colds where we lose people all the time. We've got no idea how this coronavirus is going to impact the sort of conditions we're going to experience with winter. So
But we're talking about mental health
Yes.
and factors that influence that. And one of those factors being gambling and losses.
Oh yeah, of course. For some people, yes, but not the majority at all. The things that most people take their lives for. Sam just mentioned farmers, senior farmers, no family who want to take on the property, don't know where to go,
Debt.
take their lives. We're finding a lot of young people today are doing it, and it's because of social media. It's the way in which at night they use these materials in the
Being
darkness
bullied.
of their room and pass messages to each other, sometimes deliberately, sometimes inadvertently. We're finding a whole lot of men right now, middle-aged families, who can't deal with circumstances the way they're unfolding. You know, loss of job, loss of honour, loss of pride. 8 people a day, over 3,000 people a year.
Jeff, just getting back to football, if we can turn it back to then, the overheads in relation to football.
Yep.
Having sat on the board, there's a couple of questions I'd like to ask. Number one is, and it frustrated me no end, when a salary would come up, or we've got to put this man on, we've got to put him, how much are we going to pay him? Oh, X amount. Why? He will not get that out working in the workforce. He comes into this football world, that's what the industry pays. That is what the industry pays. I should imagine that still goes on today, or that is industry standard. When is there going to be some sanity come into administration, and you are the president and you are just as much to blame as what your predecessors have been?
Including you, because
Yes,
you're a president.
but hang on, I put the hand up and said, but
I
was
tell you-
overruled.
I agree with you. I think what we pay, some of these things, is totally inflated and absurd. But they are specialists for a given period of time, and the market decides what they're paid. I would counter that by saying I think what we're going through now is going to mean a very major readjustment in the cost structure of the AFL. And I don't just mean players, I mean the administration. So the AFL is saying we're going to try and further socialise the game, further control it to give every club more advantage. We're going to do that by reducing the amount of money you can spend on the soft cap, coaches, doctors, etc., etc. I think it's standing now at about $9.5 million a year for that group of the club. They're bringing it down immediately to 8, and next year it's going to go down to 6.4 million for all the coaches and all the support staff that you need to back your players. That's a cut by a third. So, and the AFL are arguing that some of the structural changes that I've been calling for are going to be implemented because they're reducing the cost structure, the very thing that you're talking about. And I think that will flow to the players as well, because the reality is we're going to end up as a code. We'll survive this, but we're going to end up with a massive debt. It might not be 600 million, right? But even if it's half that, that's still a lot of money that you've got to repay. And so therefore, we've got, and media rights are never going to be quite as they were in the past. So I think what you're suggesting is going to happen now because of the circumstances. And they always say, you don't want to waste a good crisis to realign some of the issues, and that'll be one of them.
Now, could we stop beating around the bush, Jeff, and say that you and Eddie are the only two important presidents in the competition and you run the whole thing? Almost.
God.
No, well, you're quite right. Oh, God. No, that's not the case. There are some very, very good people in the AFL, and there are some very good presidents whom I highly respect. What I would like to see is all of us as presidents fully understand and appreciate our governance responsibilities. And regardless of whether we're an assisted or a non-assisted club at this moment, to make sure that we, in giving the AFL the responsibility to run and develop the code, also properly hold them to account for what they're doing with our industry and our code. Because if it gets out of control and for some reason they lose control, then I would take that as a personal failure. Even though I'm not on the commission nor an administrator within the AFL, I am a shareholder on behalf of my club, and I want to make sure that the code survives for future generations.
It will survive, Jeff, because football, it's a very unique game in Melbourne.
Yep.
That we support a team. And I don't believe we need the structures that are in place around a team at the moment. The people will still go and see their team, whether it be Melbourne, Richmond, Collingwood, and you could reduce your staff and whatever else. You can go take it back nearly to, in some instances, a volunteer, an honorarium base or whatever else. Same with the administration and the backup and whatever else. And people will still, and football will still continue.
Because, Don, it gives them a relief from the things.
But it's
that
unique to Melbourne, so
Yeah,
I think
it's unique to Australia. All this stuff.
No, we're only played in the bottom half.
Oh yeah, but still, we've turned it into an Australian code. It's not as successful in other states north, but it's still a very important game south, West Australia, Adelaide, South Australia, Victoria, Tassie. The thing I think. I would still rather the game played as it was played where both of you were playing.
Well, why don't you take it back there?
Because some
Can't turn
things
the
you
clock.
can't.
No,
turn.
you cannot.
No, Don, you can't.
No,
You can't.
hang on. Let
But
me finish.
I
You
like
can
the
go back. You can take from the past and apply it to the future.
I like the idea that you trained twice a week, you went and had a game of football, we'd have sausages at the end of a training period, and you still all had your jobs. So when your football days were completed, you weren't re-entering the marketplace as a 28 or 32-year-old when, in fact, all your peers were well established in their jobs, etc., and in the main were leaving you for dead. I think the concept of having sport and having a job was terribly important. We've moved on beyond that, and that's causing a lot of the problems that currently exist.
Thank you very much. That's another field. If you two could just be quiet and not be
can
so
I ask
rude.
a question?
Well, Jeffrey, you've got to go, do
It's
you?
a meeting, is it?
Yeah, Don.
I've got another 10 minutes at the most.
Yeah, and that's all we need.
Yeah, well,
right.
I want to. Given someone's a bull like you are,
Sorry, I can't hear you.
just how headstrong you are and how big you are on transparency. What would you say? Or you'd know this, that the AFL executive has at least 6 and maybe 8 people on $1 million a year. That to us on the outside sounds very extravagant.
I can't verify that number. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And the AFL doesn't report their senior staff.
Well, it should.
Well, they should. They should actually try and run themselves the way you're bound to run it as a public company, as set by the ASX. So you report even if you don't report the names, you report the scales, etc., etc. But I don't know that. But yes, they're paid well. It is a big industry. If you take the money that the AFL earns in a year and the money that the clubs earn in a year, it's over $1 billion a year.
Yeah, but they don't run the clubs, though.
No. But it is the success of the code that helps assist the clubs.
I'm amazed at you. I'm amazed at you not being upset about that.
What?
About the executive salaries at the AFL.
Well, go back to Don's point. There's going to be a correction, righto? There's going to be a correction because of what we're in now. We're not going to waste a crisis. Having said that, though, it is a big industry, and it's an important industry socially as well as financially. And therefore, I don't mind people being rewarded adequately. What I find difficult, but I've always found difficult, is when I look at someone like a Prime Minister who might be on $500,000, and you have the heads of some of these companies and the heads of some of these sporting bodies earning substantially more than that. I think that is wrong. And if you have a look at the way in which Australia pays its senior people, it is out of kilter with many around the west of the world. So are we going to waste this crisis and bring people back to relativities so that you actually have a reserve to be able to deal with issues like this or not? I don't know.
Don has one more, and
Well,
then
no,
I have one more.
he's just answered it. I was just going to say Jeffrey has just answered it because a friend of mine operates a $1 billion business, or did. He's now retired, sold it. His 6 lieutenants under him on a base of 120,000. There was a bonus there of 200 they could earn if they reached the criteria. Yet you just mentioned the AFL turns over $1 billion, or football turns over $1 billion. And the pigs have got their snout in the trough far more than what that business did, plus the fact that his business had to pay tax.
Yeah.
The AFL does not, and football clubs do not pay tax. So they're not really accountable.
No, I agree with that. They're accountable to no one because the AFL Commission is answerable to no one. But it should be done. They should be answerable
Yeah, but
to the 18.
The clubs lost that right
No.
when they sold
We have
their...
the right. We have the right. We don't exercise it. We have the right. We do not exercise it.
Jeff, this has been going on. Elliott tried to do a breakaway group in the 80s, get away from the AFL.
Yeah.
A number of clubs came together and met at Mount Macedon.
Yeah.
So this thing just keeps on going and going and going. You're telling nothing new.
If the 18 prisons put their hand up, they could actually get accountability, greater transparency. Now, to his credit, Gil McLachlan, I've asked him, he said he is going to report to us on a monthly basis. What the detail of that report is yet to be seen. But at least it's a starting point.
Did I notice bemusement when he mentioned John Elliott?
Oh, yes, just because I've known John a long time, and a bit like Don, he's a bit of a character. A bit like you, he's a bit of a character.
And you're a character as well.
I'm a bit of a character too. We're all characters. We like characters.
There's a reason me asking you this question, because I've got a follow-up question. But Channel 9's old building, that was part of your heritage, was it? The Wurlitzer
No, not quite.
Not Wurlitzer.
Wertheim.
Wertheim.
My great-grandfather built it.
Built the Wertheim organ factory.
No, piano factory, which was Channel 9's office. And he built that at the turn of the century. And it was the biggest piano manufacturing plant in the Southern Hemisphere. A wonderful business. My great-grandfather was German, as was his wife. And during the First World War, they were interred up in I think it was Albury, and after the war it was never quite the same since. So
Yeah.
there was nothing that flowed, although I have in recent times bought 4 or 5 of the old Wertheim pianos that came
Have you?
out of that factory.
So here's my final question, unless you'd like me to try and impersonate your voice, because I'm very good at
Yeah,
impersonating
go
your
on.
You
voice.
should send him off.
Now, if you are in your car when you're allowed to drive it and driving down the Great Ocean Road, what music would you like to listen to? What is your taste of being an old piano man?
No, well, you'd be a bit surprised. I've actually been listening, not in this car, because this is my truck, because my car's being repaired, but I'm normally listening
It
to...
ran over you, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Your car ran over you?
My car rolled.
What happened?
Why he lost his voice.
I lost everything. It was a mistake. It happened.
Well, just tell us what happened.
I would be listening to... I've been given 2 discs of... religious
just a minute,
religious music, and that's what I've been listening
What's
to.
that?
Religious music.
What,
So,
hymns?
Hymns.
Hymn 656A,
Yeah,
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. Played
What
at our
a
wedding.
song that is.
Yeah,
And
played
did
at our
those
wedding.
feet in ancient time.
Yes,
walk
that's
upon
exactly
England's
right.
mountains
Don's got a
green.
question that we should ask.
Now, gentlemen, I've got to go.
No,
I've got to-
Jeffrey,
one more.
I want to know about the car.
Yeah.
What did you do and what happened?
It's very, very sad, but
What, for the car or you?
it was earlier this year. Must have been late January, early February. I don't know. I drove home. It was 5 o'clock at night, so no alcohol. I just want that to... I got out of my BMW. I left the driver's door open, so I drove into my drive, slight incline, got out of the car to put rubbish in my rubbish tins, which were closer to the front gate. I looked around and saw the car starting to roll back.
Shit.
I stupidly tried to stop it. I couldn't get into the car, and I was dragged under it. The front door was still open.
Of the passenger side?
Yes, on the driver's side. Yeah, passenger side, but the driver's front door was still open. So I got the car kept rolling. I was very conscious that I had to keep my legs away from the front wheels. So I was trying to hold myself.
And you're underneath the car?
My body was sort of half in the car, but my body out, right? So I was trying to hang onto the seat to stop myself being dragged further under. The car kept rolling. I have metal gates, not solid metal gates. The car crashed through the metal gates.
They were closed or open?
Closed.
Crash through.
I crashed through them. The car passenger door closed because they were caught on the gates. I was squashed. The car rolled out onto the road, over the road, onto the other side nature strip and came down to a halt
And where were you?
under the car.
Still under the
What
car?
happened to your neck?
And as a result of all of that, I was substantially bruised and hurt, no broken bones or anything. I thought I was going to die. I really did. I thought I was going to die. I didn't. And terribly bruised and hurt. But I thought I was all right. But a couple of weeks later, I started collapsing. All the power out of my legs went. And it was found that the accident had caused damage to my neck. And I therefore had to go and have an operation on my neck, which is where I lost my voice, which I've got it back now so I could come and speak to you guys, which is why I couldn't come before.
Yes.
So here I am.
But the car didn't run over your neck.
No, but all the bashing that I got as I went through the gates
Gee.
and everything else.
Well-
I was very lucky.
Now look.
No, you
No,
look,
no, we're
because I've
finishing.
I've got to go
No,
because
we're finishing.
I can't.
I'm just about to thank you for coming in.
Great
and
pleasure.
if ever this has been a job application to be the commissioner, this is it today.
you. I do not want
should
to
be
be a
doing that.
commissioner.
Thank you very much
Pleasure,
for
Sam.
eventually accepting our offer.
Michael,
and we
thank you.
appreciate
Donald,
it.
thank you.
Eventually turning up is a better word.
It's accepting our.
I
That's all right.
I couldn't speak before. That was the trouble. I had no voice.
We live in hope that something will happen between you two and legend status,
Well,
but thank you so much.
We live in hope that we'll all be here at the end of the year. We all live in hope that we'll be here at the end of next year.
Say goodbye, Mick.
Goodbye, Mick.
Thank you, Mr. Premier.
Thank you. Thank you, Donald.
Good on you, Jeffrey.
See you, Sam.